Hola, soy Damián Kirchner, director de Mediamorfosis. Bienvenidos a esta nueva edición que por primera vez en su historia, luego de 22 ediciones en 9 países, se realiza de forma virtual desde Chile para toda Latinoamérica. La verdad es que pensábamos que iba a ser un problema hacerlo virtual. Sin embargo, esto nos dio una proyección internacional y hay una cantidad de participantes de todo el mundo extraordinaria en esta versión. Este año vamos a hacer foco en los contenidos de realidades expandidas, de realidades extendidas, lo que llamamos XR, porque entendemos que es indispensable para nuestra región comprender hacia dónde va el futuro de las narraciones audiovisuales y formar parte del liderazgo global de las narraciones expandidas. También vamos a conocer la actualidad de Chile y de cada uno de los rincones de nuestro continente. La diversidad latinoamericana es tan grande que tenemos cientos de realizadores creando historias. Algunos lo hacen en forma independiente y otros desde grandes empresas asociadas a capitales internacionales. Pero todos cuentan historias originales, con sabor y perfume local, con nuestra música, con nuestro color de piel, nuestras historias que hablan de nuestras problemáticas. Esto ha llevado a Latinoamérica a estar en los primeros planos mundiales con creadores que han llegado a ganar festivales como Venecia o South by Southwest o Sundance, pero mientras tanto convivimos con otra realidad muy dispar que se encuentra para quienes desde la profundidad del continente intentan contar sus historias.
Hola, ¿cómo están? Soy Antonia Valenzuela, productora ejecutiva de Mediamorfosis. Estamos muy contentos de poder realizar esta nueva versión de Mediamorfosis que apoya el desarrollo de las narrativas creativas inmersivas chilenas y latinoamericanas. Tenemos claro que hay mucho por avanzar y por aprender, y es por eso que quiero empezar por agradecer a los más de 30 invitados chilenos e internacionales que nos traerán sus experiencias y nos contarán sobre sus trabajos. Saludar también a los más de 40 socios, entre ellos importantes productores, distribuidores, festivales, asociaciones, gremios, espacios culturales y prensa que nos respaldan y nos ofrecen su soporte y patrocinio. Agradecer también y muy especialmente al Ministerio de la Cultura, las Artes y el Patrimonio, que a través de su fondo audiovisual nos ha permitido estar hoy aquí con ustedes y ofrecerles lo mejor del contenido latinoamericano mundial en narrativas inmersivas.
Saber contar estas historias puede transformar la realidad. En el llamado concurso de Mediamorfosis este año recibimos cerca de 70 proyectos provenientes de Chile, de Argentina, Ecuador, Brasil, México, Colombia, Perú y Panamá. Proyectos que cuentan lo que está sucediendo en nuestras sociedades. Contar historias puede ser revolucionario. Historias de pueblos originarios, historias sobre violencia de género, historias de inclusión, de preservación de nuestro planeta, documentales y ficciones. Todas historias conmovedoras que nos generan una gran responsabilidad porque sabemos que somos un puente para que nuestros creadores puedan conectar con el mundo e impulsarse para desarrollar sus carreras internacionales. Por eso, y para que puedan conocer acerca sobre fondos, distribuidores, productores, que son mayormente inaccesibles para la comunidad de la región, vamos a tener durante toda esta semana más de un centenar de reuniones one-to-one entre nuestros creadores latinoamericanos y los líderes de la industria global que los ayudarán a crecer y a internacionalizar su trabajo. Mediamorfosis es una red latinoamericana que se construyó artesanalmente desde 2014, creando encuentros en 9 países, en 11 ciudades, con colegas de todo el mundo que en América, en Europa, en Asia, caminamos por la misma vereda, que vemos el mundo de una misma manera, de una misma perspectiva, junto con los otros, compartiendo, colaborando. Mediamorfosis es una red que está activa y está viva. En Mediamorfosis nos vemos como monitos en la jungla, que nos vamos dando las manos unos a otros para ir avanzando. Hoy avanzo yo, mañana avanzás vos. Bueno, un poco eso es lo que intentamos, impulsarnos hacia adelante unos a otros dentro de esta comunidad colaborativa. Para eso, para extendernos la palma, creamos los premios de Mediamorfosis. Los 3 premios, las 3 categorías que hay de Mediamorfosis. El ganador de nuestro primer concurso, que es el IDFA Spotlight, va a viajar a Ámsterdam, al festival IDFA, para crecer en su carrera, y también va a haber un proyecto que va a recibir $1.000, que es el premio de desarrollo Mediamorfosis. Este premio va a servirle para evolucionar en su proyecto y va a haber mentorías, el premio Mentorías de Mediamorfosis, que va a permitirle recibir capacitación de profesionales internacionales que lo ayuden a crecer en su desarrollo. El mundo del XR internacional ve en Mediamorfosis una conexión para llegar a nuestros creadores, y nuestros creadores saben que somos una ventana abierta al mundo. Ese es el lugar que esperamos y que creamos para Mediamorfosis.
Es un hecho que necesitamos preparar a nuestra gente para los nuevos desafíos tecnológicos, y lo cierto es que hay muy pocos lugares en Chile y en Latinoamérica donde puedan capacitarse. La realidad de los medios es cambiante y hay que estar permanentemente actualizados sobre lo que sucede en tecnología y narrativas interactivas para poder estar a la vanguardia de lo que sucede en el mundo. Este año, además de tener conferencias, paneles, reuniones con expertos que buscan ponernos al día justamente, hemos trabajado con especial énfasis en desarrollar un programa de formación profesional para quienes necesiten avanzar, promoviendo de aquí a fin de año cursos en diversas áreas.
Bien, les voy a contar ahora cuál es la programación que tenemos en este Mediamorfosis y que hemos preparado para ustedes. La programación tiene 2 horarios de estreno centrales. El horario de las 12 horas de Chile, que son las 11 de Colombia y las 13 de Argentina, donde vamos a presentar en estreno paneles que luego quedan on demand para que ustedes lo puedan ver cuando quieran. Y a las 19:30 horas de Chile, que son las 18:30 de Colombia y las 20:30 de Argentina, vamos a presentar en estreno las conferencias que también van a quedar luego on demand para que ustedes las puedan ver cuando quieran. Les voy a contar la primera conferencia que vamos a tener ahora dentro de un ratito en estreno, que es el panorama de tendencias de realidades inmersivas que va a hacer Liz Rosenthal. Liz Rosenthal es la curadora del Festival de Venecia, es mi mentora un poco y es una gran amiga y es fundamental para entender las diferencias entre XR, VR, AR. Vos que no entendés muy bien exactamente de qué te están hablando cuando te hablan de inmersivas, no te podés perder esta conferencia que te va a ayudar a entender todo el contenido que hay en Mediamorfosis. También nos va a hablar Liz de los metaversos. Liz es británica, es la creadora de Power to the Pixel y es la curadora del Festival de Venecia. También vamos a tener una conferencia sobre monetización de proyectos de realidad virtual, donde va a estar Jimmy Cheng, que es de Taiwán, que es el responsable de el área de distribución de Digital Domain. Va a estar Blake Kemerdian, que es el curador de South by Southwest, Antoine Querol, de Atlas 5, Morgan Bouget, de Orange, una compañía telefónica europea, y Eduard Montermont, de Arbore, una productora brasilera. Ellos van a estar en un panel sobre monetización de proyectos de realidad virtual y de realidades inmersivas. Cómo se hace para entender el negocio y cómo hay que pensar para poder desarrollar el negocio en un contenido que se está creando de realidades inmersivas. También en ese punto Jimmy Cheng va a dar una conferencia acerca de la distribución del futuro de los contenidos inmersivos y cómo el 5G, que está distribuyéndose y lanzándose fuerte en todo el mundo, impulsa a la realidad virtual. Vamos a tener un panel sobre perspectivas de realidad virtual latinoamericana, donde tenemos creadores de diferentes lugares de Latinoamérica para entender cómo es el panorama en Latinoamérica. Para eso vamos a contar con Ricardo Laganaro, de Brasil, que es el ganador del último Emmy de realidad virtual. Va a estar Jorge Tereso, de Argentina, el creador de Gloomy Eyes, también multipremiado. Va a estar Belén Poncio, la directora de 4 Feet High, un contenido argentino también premiado, inmersivo en 360 de ficción. Y va a estar de Chile Natalia Cabrera, la creadora de IFA, una productora independiente que crea sus propios productos para entender la diferencia de producir cuando tenés capitales internacionales, cuando sos un productor independiente, siendo un productor latinoamericano. Vamos a tener otro panorama del punto de vista de las realidades inmersivas, que es el de los directores, cómo es dirigir contenidos de realidad virtual. Para eso tenemos 2 conferencias muy interesantes que les recomiendo. Una es la de Tupac Martí. Tupac es un creador británico de origen mexicano. Tupac va a estar presentando nuevo contenido que está estrenando que habla sobre el Alzheimer y sobre la pérdida de la memoria. Y Karim Ben Khalifa, él es un periodista que viene de la fotografía de guerra y incorpora las narrativas inmersivas para hacer periodismo. De eso nos va a estar hablando Karim como el rol del director. Vamos a tener un panel británico con Tom Barton, que es director y productor de la BBC Studios, con Eleanor Whitley, que es de Marshmallow Laser Fest, y Sharon Clark, del estudio Ruckus, donde van a estar hablando del negocio y la creatividad. Vamos a tener otro panel diferente, latinoamericano, que habla de narraciones híbridas. Va a estar José María Muscari, de Argentina, María Ignacia Kurt, que hizo un podcast sobre el estallido social en 2019 en Chile, y va a estar Javier Acuña, de la plataforma alternativa de Argentina, que ayuda a los creativos tradicionales a poder entender cómo contar esas historias de manera híbrida. Y desde Colombia va a estar Juan Vaquero Romero presentando El Cubo, una narración interactiva de ficción y dramaturgia que está realizando la televisión pública colombiana. Y para terminar, las últimas dos paneles que voy a presentar, uno es sobre el impacto de la pandemia en las narraciones ampliadas. Queridos amigos de Mediamorfosis, viejos Mediamorfosers, como llamamos nosotros, colegas que han venido ya muchas veces a Mediamorfosis, como Adam Siegel, que va a estar desde Estados Unidos coordinando este panel, junto con Chris Moran desde Gran Bretaña. Él es un integrante del periódico The Guardian, Mike Monello, uno de los creadores del proyecto Blair Witch, y Sara Bosanic desde Eslovenia, la directora del estudio transmedia de diseño de Eslovenia. Van a estar hablando del impacto en las narraciones ampliadas, en la educación de la pandemia, cómo el COVID aceleró la digitalización, aceleró la alfabetización de toda la humanidad y cómo eso impacta en nuestro trabajo. Y para terminar, el último panel que voy a presentar ahora es un panel chileno que habla de los desafíos de la adopción tecnológica del XR en Chile, cómo impacta en Chile estas nuevas tecnologías. Va a estar moderado por Felipe Mujica, de Chile Creativo, va a estar junto con José Uridi, del Ministerio de Economía, con Alejandra Ferrari, de ACHAP, con Oscar Cartagena, de ACHEIC, y Ricardo Lira, del Centro para la Revolución Tecnológica. Vamos a estar entendiendo qué está pasando ahora en Chile con las inmersivas.
Por último, y desde hoy, durante toda esta semana, tendremos una gran y única cartelera de contenidos inmersivos, muchos de ellos latinoamericanos y del resto también del mundo. Todas son experiencias cuidadosamente seleccionadas a las que podrán acceder desde el celular, desde el computador o desde los cascos de realidad virtual que tengan de casi todos los modelos. Todo esto lo podrán ver desde nuestra página www.mediamorfosis.net. Ahí además van a encontrar un tutorial que los guiará para acceder a los distintos espectáculos seleccionados, que en su mayoría serán gratuitos y otros tendrán el costo que han marcado sus propios productores. Tendremos entonces una cartelera de contenidos 360, otra cartelera VR y otra cartelera de contenidos híbridos. Finalmente, y esto nos pone muy contentos, el sábado 31 de julio tendremos una fiesta de cierre virtual donde daremos a conocer los ganadores de los premios Mediamorfosis y además viviremos juntos una performance artística que realizará The Light Lab en exclusiva para Mediamorfosis.
Bueno, esperamos que disfruten Mediamorfosis 2021 en su modo virtual, desde Chile para toda Latinoamérica y para el mundo, que aprendan, que vivan experiencias inmersivas, que hagan negocios los que los van a poder hacer en las reuniones one-to-one y que nos sigamos encontrando en esta fiesta de las nuevas narrativas. Ahora vamos a dar paso a la primer conferencia. Es un honor presentar a Liz Rosenthal, curadora del Festival de Venecia. Su charla es fundamental para entender de qué van las inmersivas, de qué se trata XR, VR, AR. Vos que no entendés exactamente de qué se trata, vas a entender con Liz exactamente qué es cada posibilidad narrativa, cómo se utiliza la tecnología, porque va a presentar casos de todo el mundo, los más nuevos y los más interesantes, y también Liz nos va a introducir en el mundo de los metaversos, universos paralelos donde las personas con nuestros cascos de realidad virtual podemos encontrarnos físicamente de manera virtual. Vamos a ver ahora entonces la primera conferencia de Mediamorfosis 2021. Bienvenidos a Mediamorfosis. Adelante, Liz. Gracias.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the opening session of Mediamorfosis Chile. I'm Liz Rosenthal. I'm joining you from London, and I'm really delighted to be joining you on this wonderful conference. I've been to Mediamorfosis in Latin America many times, and I'm very sorry that I can't be joining you today. But hopefully we'll be able to meet each other in person next year. So I'm going to begin with my background. I'm the curator of Venice VR, Venice International Film Festival's immersive content section and competition. I'm also executive producer of Creative XR, which is a UK program that helps develop and finance 20 UK leading creative teams every year. And some of you might know me from my company Power to the Pixel, which for 10 years ran different programs for interactive and immersive storytelling. So for 10 years, I ran a lab called the Pixel Lab, where we helped develop over 100 interactive and then immersive projects. And we also ran a substantial event with the London Film Festival for 10 years, where we brought together creators, financiers, distributors of interactive and immersive content. And that's where I met Damian Kersner, who's the founder of Mediamorfosis. And we've been doing many events together ever since. So today I'm going to be giving you an overview of how storytellers are using immersive technology tools or XR, to approach a wide spectrum of genres and experiences, from social impact, documentaries, fiction and animation, to multiplayer, multisensory story worlds. And as this comes from my observations as a curator at Venice, I wanted to tell you about our work there. So at the Venice Film Festival, we launched the immersive content section in 2017 with my colleague, Michel Reyac. The film festival is run by the Biennale, so that's one of the most important international cultural organizations who also run the renowned art and architecture biennales in Venice. Venice Film Festival is involved in 3 different ways in immersive content. So there's Venice VR, the official competition section for immersive content, the Biennale VR College, a development program where around 10 projects are developed annually, and finally the Venice Production Bridge Gap Finance Market, which happens during the film festival, where we showcase around 25 projects and invite global financiers and distributors to meet with them. So Venice is the first and only A-list film festival to create an official selection and competition section for immersive content. We're considering the medium on the same level as cinema, and therefore it's included as part of the official program. Directors have their red carpet moment in the same way cinema directors do, and they also receive the same types of awards, the Venice Lions. So far in festivals, VR has mostly been treated as an experimental format or as technology demo. It's often relegated to sidebar events or trade fairs. But in Venice, we wanted to change this and create a new exhibition culture and demonstrate that this is a fully fledged art form. And we're very fortunate to have a spectacular venue to showcase the projects. It's the island of Lazaretto Vecchio, which ironically used to be an old plague quarantine island, which was totally deserted for 3 centuries until VR landed there. Here are some of the images from our last physical edition in 2019. The buildings are 16th century quarantine wards, and we have extensive space where we exhibit all types of works from single-person 360 video to multi-person experiences with sets and actors. And we also have a beautiful space in the center of the island, a garden where the whole VR community from around the world usually meets. But sadly, last year, we couldn't be together on the island, but we created an entirely virtual edition, which was a kind of fantastical version in a virtual social platform called VR Chat, where we tried to represent Venice in a really kind of crazy way, as you can see in the images. And we also worked with distribution platforms, Oculus and Viveport, to exhibit the selected projects. So let me take you on a walkthrough around our virtual world with Michel in Avatar.
Hello, I'm Michel Reyac, curator of Venice VR with...
And I'm Liz Rosenthal, curator of Venice VR Expanded.
We're here in the arrival hall of our virtual world that we have created specially for the experience. So we're going to take you just visually through it, the gondola, through our exhibition hall and the garden. Please follow us.
At our exhibition hall, and we're going to take you inside to show you around. We have our 44 projects that we've selected for Venice VR Expanded. All of them are represented by all of the different 44 alcoves.
As well as the virtual edition, we formed a network of 5 high-end cultural venues around the world who were able to open and showcase the program to in real-life audiences. And we're now deep in planning for the next virtual and satellite edition in September. And we're happy to say we're also going to have a small in real life exhibition in Venice this year, and the full Arlen will be back next year. For many years, virtual reality was an experimental medium, hidden in the depths of pioneering university research departments. Creators only started using their technology 6 years ago with the release of the Oculus Rift headset. Although we're seeing works of art and entertainment that are wowing audiences in world-class festivals, cultural venues, and virtual spaces, this is still a very new storytelling medium. But we have a huge number of examples and inspiration for what it will evolve into from popular science fiction in film and television. Here are 3 examples where Hollywood predicted correctly. Star Trek, with its holodeck, a programmable room in the Starship Enterprise, through the use of solid holograms, tricked your senses and introduced millions of people to the concept of technologies that can take you to other worlds. And then 20 years ago, Spielberg's sci-fi action film Minority Report was prophetic about the user interface and motion controls of an AR computer system. And more recently, Ready Player One, the book by Ernest Cline, and the 2018 film, again by Spielberg. In this possible future of 2045, a virtual reality platform called the Oasis has supplanted the internet as the most important technology. People go to work in VR, go to school in VR, and play games in VR to escape the grimness of reality, where they can create their fantasy avatar and are able to move in a multi-sensory environment in infinite space. I'm going to say that that's very much what my last year felt like. And I'm going to talk more about my kind of metaversal experiences at the end of the presentation. However, the book was given to all the employees at Oculus, so the people creating today's VR tools are basing it on sci-fi dystopian fantasies. So XR relies on a lot of future technologies that are very nascent and are still evolving. And because we've already seen an impression of the future in mainstream entertainment, we tend to be disappointed about the immersive storytelling of today. But we shouldn't be. It's very early days. We've only 6 years in. It took decades for the cinema to develop into a sophisticated art form. So at this point, before I go any further, I think it's important to define what we mean by immersive content, or XR. I've defined this with 4 different types of realities. The first one being, of course, real reality, the real physical world that we experience with our 5 senses. The second reality is augmented reality, where 2D digital information is layered over our physical world on a mobile tablet or screen. The most famous example is the game Pokemon Go, which launched back in 2016. AR has mostly been adopted by advertisers and retailers. High-quality storytelling projects have been few and far between because of the limits of the devices and the user experience. However, I do want to mention some notable examples. The first is a Canadian project, East of the Rockies from Jan Free, financed by the Canada Media Fund and the National Film Board of Canada. It's an experimental augmented reality narrative written by 83-year-old Joy Kagawa, one of Canada's most celebrated literary figures. And it's a story told from the perspective of Yuki, a 17-year-old Japanese girl based in Canada, forced from her home and made to live in the Slocum Japanese internment camp during the Second World War.
My parents named me Yukiko, or Child of Snow. Most people just called me Yuki. Months after the attack on Pearl Harbor, my family left our home for the last time. We're in Bay Farm Camp, sharing a 16 by 16 hut with another woman, Maria, and her twin babies. Before Dad was taken away, he said he didn't think women and kids would have to leave, but if we did, he said we should only take what we could not part with.
The second example is the Wonderscope app by leading US studio Within. It features interactive stories for children, and it's a virtual world of colourful characters who encourage kids to practice reading aloud. The app's Look At feature enables characters to make eye contact with children, and voice recognition allows kids at any reading level to enjoy the app. I also wanted to mention The Invited, a project currently in development for my Creative XR program. It was one of 3 AR projects to view at home that some of the creators responded to the pandemic and came up with these beautiful new ideas that could work. So they involve a collectible high-end item such as a handcrafted pop-up book or a set that serves as the canvas to project the AR experience. So The Invited is a reinvented Dracula story that can be viewed at home or when locations open in beautiful cultural venues. And you can see the pop-up book prototype on the right-hand image. I also believe that AI will provide new ideas on how we exhibit art in public places. One such project is Unreal City, featuring 36 AR sculptures, arranged as a walking tour along the River Thames in London. It was commissioned by Acute Art, a a private art fund and collection entirely dedicated to immersive content, and it focuses on world-famous artists such as Jeff Koons and Marina Abramovich. Moving on to the third reality, mixed reality. So mixed reality is experience using glasses allowing you to go around and interact with three-dimensional objects that are superimposed into the real physical world. Two of the first headsets are Microsoft's HoloLens and Magic Leap. These are both designed as enterprise sector devices used mostly to increase productivity, training, and simulations, and come at a very high price. They're not very suitable for consumer use, and most of the creative projects developed so far are prototypes shown at festivals. Here's a trailer of the game Fragments that was a taster developed for the first HoloLens.
So I'm in my living room. I took the HoloLens home for the weekend. I'm sitting there and I look over to my right and I see the director, Kirkland. And she's sitting there on the couch, telling me to solve the mystery. And I'm just like, okay, this is awesome. And I can't even begin to imagine what we could do with storytelling and with games with that new power of having people in your space, in your home.
One of the key things on HoloLens is the world awareness. As we scan the room, we exactly know where the walls are, where the ground is, where the tables are.
Whenever we know all the information about your room, it starts looking for different points where a character could put his hand and lean against.
When you're playing Fragments now, we're able to put things like, a thumbprint on a matchbook that we hide behind your coffee table. So you actually have to physically get up, you find that pivotal clue and solve the mystery.
At our last physical edition of Venice VR, we showed two projects made for Magic Leap. The first one was the Sleepless Nights, a mixed reality installation that allows visitors to engage in new ways with those on the front line of America's eviction and homelessness crisis. It's directed by Gabo Aurora with music by Philip Glass, and it's inspired by Matthew Desmond's Pulitzer Prize-winning book, Evicted. It's basically an installation where guests wear Magic Leap headsets to view imagery on a cube that they interact with as they walk around it, so you can see the cube in the left-hand image. The second project was Tinandi, a collaboration with Icelandic band Sigur Rós and Magic Leap. It's an interactive audiovisual experience that makes you feel like you're inside Sigur Rós's otherworldly music. Mixed reality ready-to-wear consumer glasses are starting to come to market. An example of one of the forerunners is Nreal, a Chinese company which has already launched in a few territories. The device will connect to Android phones and features hand tracking, and it will cost around $500. Other companies such as Niantic and Samsung will release in the near future too, and a new Apple mixed reality headset will launch later this year. This hybrid XR headset will allow for both VR and AR experiences powered via mobile. This will be a bridging device for Apple before the release of their smart glasses, which is predicted in 3 years. And finally, the fourth reality is virtual reality, which replaces real reality and totally disconnects you from the physical world. Virtual reality is split into two categories that enable 3 degrees of freedom or 6 degrees of freedom. With 3 degrees of freedom, often called 360, you are passively watching a 360 image. 6 degrees of freedom enables you to be fully immersed, freely move around, interact, and participate in the world. So 3DOF or 360 works can be experienced on phones, web browsers, all types of headsets, and can be in domes. 6 degrees of freedom works can be experienced on untethered headsets like the Oculus Quest and tethered headsets. So tethered headsets that are linked to a PC with a powerful graphics card. So that's headsets like the Oculus Rift, the HTC Vive, Valve Index, the HP Reverb, and Sony PlayStation VR. All have different publishing formats, so you have to develop separately for each and be very aware of this when you start your project. Most VR specialists consider that 360 video or 3DOF works and not true VR, and many predicted that this format would disappear. But I tend to disagree, and although the immersion and agency is far more limited, I'm still seeing powerful work that proves that this format has value. It allows for far greater accessibility for those without headsets, although viewing the work on a flat screen is a very limited experience. So here are three great examples of 360 projects that came out recently. The first is Re-Educated, that offers a glimpse into a horrifying world of the internment camps in Xinjiang in China, where we learn about the brutal practices used against the Uyghur ethnic minority, and is a project that was produced by the New Yorker magazine. It's told through animated illustration and testimony from 3 people who survived. The second project is an Argentinian project called 4 Feet High. It's a drama telling the story of Juana, a 17-year-old wheelchair user, as she joins a new school and explores her sexuality. The writer and co-director is a wheelchair user, and she gives us a unique perspective of a story we very rarely see on screen. And the last example is Felix and Paul, Space Explorers, the ISS experience. So Felix and Paul Studios from Canada have demonstrated that very high quality cinematic 360 is possible. Their work is of exceptional quality, transporting you to remarkable locations and situations on Earth and beyond. And this series takes you to the International Space Station. It's an epic 4-parter that invites you to join 8 astronauts on life-changing missions aboard the station. And it shows you the joy, wonder, and dangers of life in orbit. So 6 Degrees of Freedom works vary immensely in genre and their degree of interactivity and immersion. These 3 projects are around 30 minutes long and are for single players, and they range from the least agency and interactivity, which is Gloomy Eyes by Argentinian studio Frida, a fantastical Tim Burton-style zombie animated love story by Argentinian studio 3DAR. And it's a really beautifully crafted piece of animation, but it's not interactive. The second example is The Line, or A Linha, from Brazil, another love story where the action takes place on a miniature set where the viewer drives forward the story with a beautifully crafted interactive device. And the final example on this page is Baba Yaga, a 6-stop animated title that's interactive with branching narrative. It's for Oculus Quest, and it's designed for hand tracking, so not using your controllers. And that's by the animation studio Baobab in the west coast of the States. Then there are substantial narrative games like The Room VR, A Dark Matter by British game studio Fireproof Games. It's an otherworldly puzzle game adventure story that takes 3 hours at least to complete, and it's set in the British Institute of Archaeology in London in 1908. And the final 2 examples are actually live theatre performances with actors. The first one, Finding Pandora X, is an immersive theatre project set in social virtual world metaverse platform VR Chat. It's a modern take on the myth of Pandora, with 3 actors and up to 14 audience members who participate as the group chorus. And finally, there are experiences designed for locations, like the horrifically real virtuality, that include real physical sets, haptics, actors, and 6 audience members who participate in an immersive theatre experience. Before going into the specifics of genres and themes, let's look a little at the market for VR. And in this presentation, I am going to concentrate mostly on VR because that's what most of the projects we've seen at Venice and I'm seeing coming from my programs are on this medium. So this slide comes from a report by CCS Insight published last December. Their estimate of headsets sold in 2019 and 2020 plateaued at 7.2 million. There is still a very small number of headsets in consumer hands. Sales of VR and AR devices to both consumers and enterprises would have been much higher last year if some of those players had been able to ramp up production. But unfortunately, because of COVID, the supply chains were disrupted when in fact there was a huge demand for the headsets, especially headsets like Oculus Quest, which no one could get their hands on in the midst of the pandemic. But actually, the figures are really good because when you look at the mobile market, it actually dropped by 15%, whereas VR actually stays steady. So headset sales are going to grow strongly over the next 4 years and are predicted to reach 55 million units in 2024. So just going through the different headsets that are represented by different colors, dark green are standalone VR headsets such as Oculus Quest, which will make up half the market by 2024. Turquoise represents the first headset smartphone shell devices, such as the Samsung Gear VR, which aren't being made anymore. Affordable VR, MR, and MR devices that connect to a smartphone are represented by the light blue for VR and orange for consumer smart glasses. And they're going to emerge as an important category by 2023. And these will include products from all those major consumer brands like Samsung, Facebook, and Apple. And here are some key indicators of the outlook for VR for 2021. Oculus Quest is on track to be the first mainstream VR device. 1 million Quest units were sold in the last quarter of 2020. More than 60 Oculus Quest developers reached $1 million plus in revenue. That was last year. And the most important indie gaming platform, Steam, saw monthly connected users up 94% since last year. Last March, when I got the last figures, 3 million unique users were reported to be using VR. And then there are things like titles like The Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners, which have reached a whacking $29 million in 1 year in revenue. And we had the first big news about a native VR platform, Rec Room, which surpassed 1 million monthly users and was valued at $1.25 billion. So that's the first company to be valued over $1 billion that's a native VR project platform. Sadly, out-of-home VR businesses like The Void sadly went bankrupt because of the pandemic. But still, the pandemic prompted interest in VR. And just looking at these figures of use, 70% of VR owners bought a device in the last 12 months. 90% of owners play games on a device once a week. 60% of VR users use their headset for exercise once a week. And 60% of VR users use their headset daily. So these indicators demonstrate the success in the VR space is repeatable, and VR is no longer a developer's playground. It's a platform offering real opportunity, and that's not just for traditional games. It's becoming rapidly more sophisticated and professional. So before 2019, at Venice, many of the projects we saw were either short marketing companions for film or TV series, or experimental works between 5 to 15 minutes maximum. From 2019, we had several projects around 30 to 60 minutes, and now we curate projects that are playable for several hours. The majority of projects we see are now XR projects also, totally native XR projects, and not IPs that are developed as marketing companions. So before the pandemic, a variety of distribution platforms and revenue models were emerging across two areas, through online platforms for entertainment consumed at home or on mobile devices, and out-of-home location-based entertainment across a variety of arts, entertainment, and retail venues, known as LBE. All these different platforms and venues offered a variety of different licensing possibilities. And until the pandemic, LBE was seen as an important way to launch projects and to build appetite for audiences unfamiliar with the medium. LBE was a way to overcome the fact that few consumers own headsets or expensive hardware or have the space to run projects at home. And many of the experiences launched in galleries and other venues were simply not designed to be released on online platforms and involve complicated setups of motion tracking, haptics, theatre sets, and even actors. So since the pandemic, LBE has obviously been very out of bounds. Real-life festivals have been cancelled, venues shut, and the idea of sharing headsets and haptics in public spaces seemed almost unimaginable for the time being. However, artists and immersive studios have pivoted and developed formats that work for at-home distribution or hybrid options that anticipate the opening of venues. And it's been really exciting over the last year to see some of the ingenious ideas emerge in response to the crisis. And I'm going to show you a variety of projects that fit into all these categories in the next part of my presentation. So we're going to look at recurring themes and formats and genres now. Dystopian sci-fi is one of the most popular genres. Maybe it's because early producers and creators involved in VR tend to be from a technology background inspired by sci-fi and interested in the relationship between future technologies and their effect on humanity. Also, the subject tends to appeal to gamers and younger audiences who are the earlier adopters of VR. The way these themes now are handled are becoming increasingly sophisticated, though, and philosophical. So let me show you three key projects. One of the most popular VR titles, acclaimed for its outstanding visual and cinematic quality, writing and acting, is Half-Life Alyx. It's a first-person adventure survival game developed and published by Valve, the owner of Steam. And it's the VR part of the Half-Life Alyx game series, and it's really sophisticated and takes many hours to play. The second project is 1111. It's an original project by NBC Universal, and a very interesting format which could be adapted to other genres. You follow 6 main characters as they count down the final 11 minutes and 11 seconds before all life is extinguished on their island planet. And their only guarantee for survival is a transport ship that will launch just before the clock hits 0. Their stories unfold simultaneously, and using your controllers, you can manipulate time and space as their narratives play out in real time, and you can follow the action in 3 unique modes. So story mode, explore mode, and goddess mode, which enable you to move into different parts of the world and zoom out and see the world, or zoom in and follow the characters' stories. And a third example is Samsara. It's a new series from artist Huang Xin-Chen from Taiwan, who often collaborates with Laurie Anderson. Episode 1 of Samsara places viewers into an embodied cognition experience where one transforms into various beings to expand perception and broaden the concept of otherness. So here's a trailer from the first episode that we awarded the Grand Jury Prize for at South by Southwest.
Do you still remember your earliest memory?
Projects that take you on impossible journeys on this planet and beyond are popular, especially in 360 video viewing formats. Space and astronomy are one of the most popular genres. Here are 3 examples of outstanding documentary series set in space that create an exceptional feeling of presence. On First and Second Steps, You Journey to the Moon and Then Envisage a Journey to Mars is by German company Faber Couture, created from images taken in space. Spheres, Songs of Space-Time is a 3-part virtual reality experience created by Eliza McNitt and produced by Darren Aronofsky. It takes the viewer on a journey through space and the sounds that can be heard there. It was notably the first known VR product to secure a 7-figure deal at Sundance a few years ago and provoked a significant media interest in the state of the VR film industry. It also won our Grand Jury Prize in Venice in 2018. And then Space Explorers, a 4-part series I mentioned earlier.
When we got to orbit, it was nighttime, and all I could see was blackness. It is the most rawly human that I've ever felt. You're just there, and the joy is overwhelming.
We're more than just going to space for a dangerous trip like we used to. Now we live here.
The sooner you can remap everything to be 3D, the quicker you'll be able to move through here.
That power of adaptation is one of the most beautiful aspects of the human mind.
Projects that focus on mind and body for exercise, well-being and meditation have seen a huge growth over the last year. The untethered Oculus Quest allows you to move freely, and with the launch of this headset, we've seen a variety of apps allowing all kinds of unhindered movement. And since the pandemic started, that figure of 60% of owners using their device for exercise every week is significant. So fitness and active use is a huge thing in VR, and there are dedicated fitness apps spanning from Supernatural, a fitness game set in outstandingly beautiful locations, to rhythm games such as bestseller Beat Saber, which is not sold as a fitness app, but requires a user to be incredibly active, and I know many people who use it as their exercise routine every day. Then there are many apps from boxing to dancing to exercise bike experiences. Well-being and meditative experiences for mind and body are also an exciting area. These 3 examples sit between art and science and have been developed in collaboration with clinicians, psychologists, and neuroscientists. Sound Self describes itself as part of a new genre, technodelics, that weave the disciplines of hypnosis, ceremony, meditation, and neuroscience into the fabric of a video game's feedback loop. The experience puts you in a deep meditative trance where you use your voice to generate a hypnotic world of light, color, and sound. Then Explore Deep, developed by Rebel University and the Games for Emotional and Mental Health Lab in the Netherlands, is carefully designed and researched as a tool for teaching people valuable emotion regulation techniques in a safe and supporting environment. It allows players to navigate through a serene and poetic underwater world. Movement is controlled by slow, deep breathing, which soothes and relieves anxiety in the player. And the final example, The Forest of Serenity, you listen to the soothing tones of Sir David Attenborough as he guides you through a forest populated by birds of paradise and exotic fauna. This was a brainchild of Dr. Sheila Poppert from the hospice in England, who wanted to use it as part of her pain management program and strives to help those suffering pain to reduce their reliance on drugs. So I'm going to show you a clip from Deep VR. There are a broad spectrum of exceptional projects that take you through especially intimate and introspective personal experiences. Where Thoughts Go is an intimate VR social experience in which you record and anonymously share personal voice messages via orb-like audio creatures. A Life in Flowers places you in the universe of Ikebana, the Japanese art of flower arrangement. Inside the virtual environment, you explore the harmony between flowers and human life during a conversation with legendary artist Azuma Makato, achieved using artificial intelligence technology. As the conversation progresses, a unique bouquet of flowers will form based on each participant's life. And finally, The Collider, a UK project developed at Creative XR by the talented Anagram Studio that examines one's personal relationship with power when two people collide in the VR experience. One is in VR in headset and one is not in VR, and it's a beautifully designed installation journey. I'm going to show you a clip from A Life in Flowers.
Arranging flowers is much like life. We aim for perfection, but there is no such thing. As long as I am not satisfied, I cannot stand still. So I keep creating. Each flower represents a different emotion. Joy, anger, thoughtfulness, fear, confidence, and sadness. Speak to me about your life, and I'll work with the flowers to tell your story.
There are many projects that powerfully enable users to consider nature and our place within it. We Live in an Ocean of Air is a multi-sensory immersive installation illuminating the fundamental connection between animal and plant, where you step through the canvas and share a breath with the giants of the plant kingdom. It's by Marshmallow Laser Feast and was shown at the Saatchi Gallery in London for several months, and it was a very impressive installation for 10 users. Once Upon a Sea is a poetic interactive XR documentary telling the tragic tale of the legendary Dead Sea in Israel, a rare glimpse into one of the world's most dangerous, soon-to-be extinct wonders. And finally, Time Magazine's Inside the Amazon, The Dying Forest, uses their mobile app to showcase the impact of deforestation using augmented reality, narrated by iconic conservationist Jane Goodall. A recurrent theme explored by VR creators is bringing to life great works of art. Creators have reinterpreted paintings by artists such as Van Gogh, Magritte, Dali, and many more. L'Île des Morts by Benjamin Newell is a timeless journey starting from an everyday apartment towards our final destination, the Isle of the Dead. This VR experience is a loose recreation of the work painted in 1883 by Swiss symbolist painter Arnold Böcklin, and it won one of our awards at Venice 3 years ago. History of a Painting is a series of history of art lessons that uses immersion to paint a history of Georges Seurat's in Sunday Afternoon, which is the first episode, on the island of the Grande Jatte. And that was one of our Creative XR program and is also going to be developing many different painter stories. Immersive Van Gogh is one of 3 impressive immersive exhibitions of the painter's work. This is an image from the original exhibition in Paris. It's touring around the world at the moment, and it uses 360 projection. So I wanted to show you some experiences that were outside of headset experiences that were also using 360 technology. My favorite work is in the genre is Le Cri, or The Scream, based on the painting by Edward Munch. It presents a unique interpretation of the expressionist masterpiece, drawing you into the tortured mind of the artist.
The Scream is undoubtedly Edvard Munch's most famous painting. A scream whose origin remains mysterious. Is this painting a reaction to inner feelings or an external shock?
In a famous TED Talk, immersive artist and director Chris Milk called VR the ultimate empathy machine, allowing you to truly step into the shoes of others. This has been highly debated for 5 years. However, what is certain is that the sense of presence that spatial storytelling evokes can stimulate a strong emotional resonance, impact, and understanding of an environment or situation. For this reason, VR has been used for many documentarian activists and NGOs to highlight social, humanitarian, and environmental issues. Here are some strong examples of experiences that let you see, hear, and feel a reality that's different from your own. This accompanied a documentary feature with the same title, Notes on Blindness, and it's a VR journey into a world beyond sight. In 1983, after decades of steady deterioration, John Hull became totally blind, and to help make sense of the upheaval in his life, he began documenting his experiences on audio cassette, and these original diary recordings form the basis of the project. And it's one of the first great VR projects that give one a powerful experience of his cognitive and emotional experience of blindness. The Key by Céline Tricard is a unique story starting with an exploration of a nameless narrator's dreams before connecting to an explicit message about the plight of refugees. The core experience takes place in virtual reality and is available on Oculus Quest, but at festivals it was shown as an installation where participants began entering a room and interacting with a live actor, and it won our Grand Jury Prize in 2019. We Live Here by Rose Trochet introduces us to Rocky, a 59-year-old woman who has been living in a tent in a park for almost 3 years. In this interactive VR experience, you will be asked to interact with Rocky's objects and through them learn her life. You will come to understand you are not so different from Rocky. At the end of the experience, the police come to destroy Rocky's tent and home. It's a devastating and shocking moment that is exceptionally powerful because of your sense of presence.
Sometimes I imagine having a home again. I think about the sounds of it, the things I miss. And And most important of all, the sound of a door locking. Then you can go to bed knowing you're safe. That's the dream.
LAPD, come on out! Anybody in there? Anybody home? Sleeping in there? Gotta clear out.
The highest level of production value in VR is animation. There are many different examples of styles and genres. Here are 6 examples from the last 2 years at Venice, from hand-drawn work such as Hangman at Home that won our Grand Jury Prize last year, to intricate CGI cinematic story worlds such as Gnomes and Goblins, and beautifully crafted miniature dioramas such as Gloomy Eyes, Paper Birds, The Line, and Down the Rabbit Hole. In animation, the diorama is a common device or theme. It enables you to direct the viewer gaze more effectively as you can move the viewer more easily through the scene to marvel at the intricacy of these sumptuous worlds. Down the Rabbit Hole from Swedish studio Cortopia is a wonderful example. In this VR adventure set in Wonderland prior to Alice's arrival, you will guide a girl who is looking for her lost pet by solving puzzles, uncovering secrets, and making choices about the story along the way. The story unfolds in a huge diorama world that you interact with, and it takes several hours to move through. Before the pandemic, there was a huge growth of location-based multi-person VR in cultural and performing arts venues, shopping malls, and visitor attractions. These kind of experiences use motion tracking software, multi-sensory haptic devices, and physical objects. You can be fully embodied as an avatar exploring a story world and interacting with other participants and sometimes actors in immersive theatre-type experiences. In Western countries, many of these venues have sadly shut down, but in places where the pandemic has been more contained, they're still going strong, especially in the Far East. 2 examples of high-end companies were the Void and Dreamscapes that sadly no longer operational. The following projects are some of my favourite examples of more artistic projects we showed in Venice. Multi-person dance experience, VRI, is by Swiss choreographer Gilles Jobin, and it's one of the most toured experiences. This was his first VR project, and it's for 5 visitors at a time to freely navigate a real world inhabited by virtual dancers. You are fully embodied avatars, so free roaming with backpack computers attached to headsets and trackers on feet and hands. Participants each embody an avatar that faithfully replicates their movements, enhancing the feeling of immersion in the virtual world, while also enabling them to see their peers. Here's a making of trailer.
Wow!
Like him, like 40 meters high, and you go. C'est un peu comme faire un film pour des gens qui n'ont jamais vu d'image en mouvement. Ces marqueurs, en fait, reprennent les informations des caméras infrarouges, et c'est ces marqueurs qui vous permettent d'être situés dans l'espace.
Oui, ça serait bien.
Et puis d'ailleurs, sa mère maintenant, c'est mignon. Elle est en train de flotter. Non, je sais plus.
You have a nice dress. You have yeah. Salut.
Salut. C'est Gilles. Alors.
Der Hund.
The 2 other examples were complex immersive theatre experiences with actors. Horrifically Real Virtuality was the most complex project we showed in Venice. In groups of 6 viewers, they explore a 100-meter square space divided into 7 different physical and virtual sets, and the experience lasted about an hour. It's set in a 1950s B-movie world where you enter into the set in the surreal world of Edward movies and meet aging B-movie star Bela Lugosi, the first and legendary on-screen Dracula. The last project is Love Seat by Kira Benzing, who has experimented more than anyone with virtual immersive theatre. It's a virtual theatrical performance where actors perform simultaneously to a real-world live audience that you can see in the picture in Venice, and also a virtual world audience that you can see behind in the little screen. And this is my first experience of the metaverse. They use the platform High Fidelity, which doesn't exist anymore. And so it was the first time I actually saw a social world platform being used for performance. And I'm going to talk about this next. So the COVID crisis has accelerated the use of VR social platforms as ways to work, share, play, create, experience culture, and coexist remotely. There's been an explosion of options available for business purposes, socializing, events, music, and other performing arts. So they offer users the ability to choose and edit avatars to represent themselves to varying degrees, as well as allow you to customize environments. There are many different platforms with varying features and levels of accessibility. The most established platforms are Rec Room, VR Chat, and Microsoft-owned Outspace. I also wanted to mention a Museum of Other Realities, which is an immersive multiplayer art showcase in VR, where you can connect, share, and experience virtual reality art with others. And it contains a cross-section of VR art supporting artists who are challenging and redefining what's possible in the medium. And they're also working with festivals to create bespoke spaces, for example, CanXR and Tribeca, which is on in the month of July. However, for platforms like these, unfortunately, they're quite inaccessible because they're only for tethered headsets. And so they have quite a small user base, although the experience is very beautiful once you're inside. VR Chat is my favorite metaverse platform. It's accessible on 6 Degrees of Freedom headsets, so tethered and on a tether, so you can get into it in the Oculus Quest. And you can also, if you don't have a headset, take part on PC desktop. It consists of a huge creative community of makers. You can import your own avatar, or you can clone other avatars that other makers have made and design your own private worlds and game worlds within. And I see so many bespoke, fantastical worlds that you can move between in world hops once they've been published. Or you can choose to make your worlds private versions and invite specific people into them. At Venice this year, we're creating another special section, the best types of VR chat worlds that we've experienced over the year, to celebrate the incredible range of creativity we're seeing on this platform. And the last platform I mentioned before is Rec Room, which is the most popular VR social space. Less creative because it's got world building tools of its own that you have to sort of stick with, but an incredibly successful platform that's also available across all different devices, which makes it incredibly accessible. I wanted to pinpoint 3 different projects designed for VR chat. First, Finding Pandora X, which I mentioned before, which is an immersive theatre performance by Kira Benzing. So a reworking of the Greek myth, where Broadway actors play the gods Zeus and Hera, and the audience are the Greek chorus, there to help the gods find Pandora's box. It's a fantastical adventure, and it's available also on Quest and PC. And the director, Kira Benzing, won a prize in Venice last year for this. The second one is The Devouring. It's a horror escape room game inside VR chat that you play collaboratively with your friends. It's a substantial game world that takes several hours to get through, where you have to escape a huge fantastical mansion by solving complex puzzles and avoid being devoured by ghosts. And it's brilliant when you go in the game and you finish it. They have a kind of leaderboard part of the mansion where you can see all the different people who played it. And it takes hours and hours. It sometimes takes around 10 or 12 hours to get through it in one go. The last example is Jean-Michel's concert, Welcome to the Other Side by Jean-Michel Jarre. I spent my New Year's Eve there, and it took place in a spectacular virtual version of Notre Dame set, and it was performed live, and Jean-Michel Jarre was embodied as an avatar in VR. So I'm first going to show you a trailer of Finding Pandora X.
Are you ready to do something? Now remember, Zeus is a little temperamental. We have to approach with caution. The chorus and I have come to deliver you a message.
You could see the actors were in costume and the audience were participating in the grey costumes with the hoods. And it was super fun because you actually learned how to fly. I'm just going to show you a short clip from Jean-Michel Jarre's concert to give you an idea of the graphic style. Here's some picture of me and my friends and colleagues who meet at least once a week in VR chat to go world hopping and experience an event. Experience VR with others has incentivized me to put my headset on and jump into VR like nothing else has before over the last year. And I can say that some of my most memorable experiences have been in VR chat, being in these crazy worlds and playing quests with my friends. I also wanted to mention 3 standout live performance experiences that actually have their own standalone apps that are multiplayer. So they're not on social platforms, they develop separate apps. The first is La Comédie Virtuelle, another project by Gilles Jobin that we premiered in Venice VR last year. It's a dance experience that was adapted due to the pandemic. It was originally a single person experience, but Gilles was able to create a dance experience where he took the environment that he created, which is a rendering of a real new building in Geneva, a new theatre called La Comédie, and he managed to get dancers that were mocapped live in different parts of the world to perform together in the space. So the dancers were in Australia, India and Switzerland and performed live and together for an audience of up to 20. Then The Tempest was a live show based on the Shakespearean classic that first ran in July 2020 last year in the app called The Under Presents, which is a David Lynch type open-ended world that's an app on the Oculus Quest store. It's a multiplayer experience with one actor and audience members of up to 6. It lasts around 45 minutes and it's an in-app purchase of The Under. So it's a very clever idea of building an app in a world that exists outside of performance runs, but you can run different performances within the app. And finally, Dr. Crumb's School of Disobedient Pets, which is one of the best examples of live performance. You can book one session with 4 friends and it costs around $100 and it's available for all headsets.
Let's set the stage. Put on your headset. Imagine a ship at sea. The illusion of a storm, a tempest, a production sunk, a theater closed, but I, the actor, am live, ready to perform my role. Good Prospero will bring the play to life with the help of my magic and you, my spirits. We are ready now to perform together. Approach my Ariel. Come.
The most important aspect of virtual reality is presence. Presence in this sense encompasses both the physical and the mental occupation of a virtual space. The more presence a VR experience provides, the more a participant can disconnect themselves from the real world to accept the virtual as a new reality. And I want to end with a quote by Jaron Lanier, often quoted as the godfather of VR, that underlines an important difference between flat-screen media and VR. He said that the difference between the screen and VR is not that the screen is in front of you and VR is around you. The difference is that the screen is in front of you and VR is you. The greatest joy of VR is not about just being in a world, it's about transforming oneself. So this visceral realness of human presence within an avatar is the most dramatic sensation I felt about this medium. The possibility of embodying myself in different personas and building worlds I can share and collaborate with others is what excites me the most and more than any other present media form. So thank you very much for listening. Welcome to Mediamorfosis, and I hope you have a wonderful conference.